Okay, so we're going to have a speech now from Tom Peters, Socialist Equality Group, New Zealand and World Socialist website, writer. Thank you, Tom.
Well, the Pacific Institute of Resource Management, believe it or not, we still do exist as an official organisation with hundreds of thousands of international.
Thank you, Kay.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you so much to FreeAssangeNZ for organising these protests. It's really very important, and we're here at a very critical time to condemn the continuing imprisonment and persecution and what's been correctly described as the slow motion murder of Julian Assange. If he does not die in prison from coronavirus or from physical and psychological torture, then the courageous journalist and editor of WikiLeaks faces 175 years in a US prison because he published truthful information about US war crimes in Iraq and Afghanistan, as well as the activities of the CIA and US allies around the world. His trial in London is a complete farce. It has nothing to do with the law. The British authorities have refused to release Julian Assange on bail, despite the risk to his life. He's in a weakened and frail condition. They've kept him in virtual isolation with hardly any access to his legal team. Stella Morris, Assange's partner and the mother of his children, said in a statement just a few hours ago, he's been confined to his cell for up to 24 hours a day, deprived of intellectual stimulation, and has no access to his lawyers for the last 6 months. 2 weeks ago I was able to see him for the first time since lockdown. He looked a lot thinner than on my last visit. He was in a lot of pain and his health is not good. She also said, there are also fundamental legal reasons why the extradition should be blocked. This is a political act by the Trump government, and Julian is accused of a political offence, which is outside the terms of the US-UK extradition treaty. The Trump administration, supported by the Democrats and both parties in Britain, are determined to set an example. As Neil Meltzer, the UN rapporteur on torture, recently said, quote, the main purpose of torture is not punishment. The real purpose of torture, most of the time, is intimidation. What's happening to Assange is about intimidating all other journalists and publishers and making sure that no one does what he has done, because that's what states are afraid of. None of the allegations that WikiLeaks' publications of documents endangered lives have been substantiated. On the other hand, WikiLeaks has released proof, including the horrifying collateral murder video, that the US has committed cold-blooded murder of civilians, for which nobody has been held responsible. The world has never been in more need of fearless and genuinely independent journalism. Governments are moving towards dictatorship. In the United States, Trump has threatened to deploy the military against protesters, and there are constant threats from both parties to attack China or to attack Russia. The corporate media in this country no longer reports even the most basic details of the Assange case. They support his persecution. They are complicit in a historic assault on democratic rights. The same is true for all the political parties in the UK, Australian and New Zealand parliaments, which all support stronger ties with Washington. The inquiry carried out recently into the Operation Burnham in Afghanistan by New Zealand troops shows the attitude of the government towards war crimes is no different here than it is in the United States or Britain. The finding of that inquiry was that soldiers' actions, including the killing of a young girl, were completely legal, and no one in the military or the government is being held accountable for covering up this atrocity for years. The Ardern government also opposes transparency because they rule on behalf of the rich. Their main response to the pandemic is to give billions of dollars to the banks and big business and the military. Meanwhile, poverty is soaring, to levels not seen in generations. And healthcare workers are protesting in Christchurch and striking across the country because the system is grossly understaffed and underfunded. The record shows that none of these governments will take any action to secure Assange's liberty, as they are required to do under international law, unless they're compelled by mass pressure from below. So as Niels Meltzer and Stella Morris and many others have warned, and as we insist on the World Socialist website, the fight for the freedom of Julian Assange has to be broadened. We say it must become the fight of the working class as a whole, and of anyone who believes in freedom of speech, who opposes war and defends human rights. This is a critical battle of our time that must not be lost. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Woohoo! Woo! Thanks.